Brandon Harding opened up, shared exactly what he's taking, the good, the bad, and the ugly, shared his health problems. Nick, he doesn't believe it. He's like, no, you're lying. But is he, in fact, lying? Coach Greg and more drama in the fitness industry. Nick Trigili is calling out Brandon Harding for lying about his steroid usage. He's saying, you're full of shit. I don't believe you. You're downplaying how much you're taking. You're lying about your doses. And he goes on to say that you couldn't get those health ramifications from dosages as low as you're explaining. I watched this video, then I watched it again. I'm going to tell you, is Nick wrong, right? Brandon lying? Nick lying? Who's the liar of the two? Well, stay tuned to find out. So Nick Trigili's channel is called Bodybuilding and Bullshit, and in case you don't remember, this is the guy that called me out for having $36,000 coaching plans. He didn't believe I could charge that much money and was suggesting that maybe I was selling illegal stuff, maybe, to make the living that I'm making. And so you see, the thing is, Nick is like me. He tells it like it is. He calls it the way he sees it, but doesn't mean he calls it right.
And we're going to talk about Brandon Harding's video about his so-called cycle that he's doing for his off season.
So he starts off by saying, we're going to talk about Brandon Harding's so-called cycle. Already negative. Brandon Harding opened up, shared exactly what he's taking, the good, the bad, and the ugly, shared his health problems. Nick, he doesn't believe it. He's like, no, you're lying. But is he, in fact, lying?
The only reason I smell a little shit is because I just don't think you can have this type of damage done to your health at 24 years old doing Primobolan and test.
Brandon released a video and said what he's taking right now. The video was not what he took in the past for the past 5 years. It's what he's taking right now. So Nick, he didn't do the research. He claims he's watched a bunch of Brandon's videos, but has he really? Who's watched more videos? Coach Greg, who quite literally used to coach Brandon? Or Nick Trigili, who watched a couple of his videos and doesn't know that he has used other things in his past? And in case you're wondering if this is clickbait, Brandon responded in the comments section saying this: I'd just like to point out that I didn't quite appreciate being called out for potentially lying. If there is anyone that is overly honest about their life, sometimes a little too honest, I would like to say that's definitely me. I've always been open about the cycles I've taken, hardships in my life, breakups, personal information that probably shouldn't be on the internet, but that's just the kind of person I am. I don't hold this theoretical red curtain of secrets. I'm pretty open book, but I understand your concerns as my doses are generally quite low at the moment. And so in short, Brandon's saying, I don't like being called a liar, and just because my doses are low now doesn't mean they were low in the past or low in the future.
I smell shit. It stinks.
So Nick's smelling shit and it stinks. Well, in my house, things are smelling like roses.
This is how we start the video. Do you ever wake up in the morning when you look at yourself in the mirror and you start doing some poses and then you start getting really out of breath? As soon as you get up in the morning, you're like...
I have to just call corny, cheesy. Bro, you're not even that big.
And to start the video, I agree with Nick. Brandon saying he's tired to pose. It's like, come on, dude. You're off season, sure, but you're not 350 pounds and you're not obese. If you're actually out of shape, this kind of shape that you're out of breath posing in the morning, you got to do some more cardio.
If someone was on a decent cycle prior to this, you don't start out with, a couple 100 milligrams of Primo and a couple 100 milligrams of testosterone.
You're wrong, Nick. You are wrong. I was on huge doses in the past. I've outlined my cycles. I've taken a shit ton of gear. I have BB Pro card. You know I was on a lot of gear. Not healthy. I'm currently on 140 milligrams of test a week. Let's say I wanted to grow for the next 5 months. Do you really think I would need to start with test, trend, D-ball, a massive cycle to build muscle? If I did Brandon's exact cycle, I would put on a shit ton of muscle by copying what he's doing. He's on 250 milligrams of test, 500 milligrams of Primo. That's how he's starting out. And he's taking GH. I wouldn't even need the GH. I could take less than Brandon's doing, and in fact, if I were to do a cycle and I wanted to get jacked, I would take less. And I don't buy it, Nick. Saying he can't build muscle on 250 milligrams of test, 500 milligrams of Primo, 3 IUs of GH, just because he's taken bigger cycles in the past? Really? You don't think he can start a 5-month cycle on that and build muscle for, say, the first 8 weeks? You can. Course you can.
Test E. This is testosterone enanthate. I'm having 250 milligrams.
It's nothing. You're barely flicking your dick to get anything going.
Are you kidding, Nick? If most people were to take 250 milligrams of test a week, they would see huge changes. I'm not going to lie about what steroids do. 250 milligrams is in fact a lot. You can build significant amounts of muscle on 250 milligrams. 140 here. If I up my dose to 250, I would grow muscle. And I'm 46 years old, abused steroids for 10 years. So if I can build muscle at 250, what makes you think that most people would be like flicking their dick in taking 250?
And because of the fact that it is a slower ester, it means that you don't necessarily have to do as frequent of injections.
Guys, don't overcomplicate testosterone. There's enanthate, sip, and probe.
There's a shit ton more than that. We have test suspension, test acetate, test probe, test enanthate and sip, test sus, test decanate, test undecanoate. And there's probably a lot more. That's just off the top of my head. And the ester length dictates how often you need to do the injection. The longer the ester, the less frequently you have to inject. If he was to use test probe instead, he would probably have to inject test probe every single day to get as stable of blood levels as when he's injecting test enanthate every other day. So why would he not use a longer ester? It makes a huge difference. The longer the ester, the less frequent the injection.
To only take 2 compounds in an off season when you said you only have 5 months, how could you have this much damage done to your body prior if you haven't done that high of doses previously?
And so here's the problem. Nick hasn't done enough research on Brandon. He doesn't know the cycles he's done in the past, and he thinks he needs to start with more to build muscle, that he couldn't have done the damage he's done on low doses. Brandon has not said he's only ever done test enanthate and primo in his life. Nick doesn't know that for his last contest prep, Brandon was talking about a new compound he added that was causing insomnia. I'm assuming it's tren. Nick should know this if he was watching Brandon's videos. He would even know this if he was watching my videos talking about Brandon.
100 milligrams per week. That is the highest amount of primo I have ever taken.
Why would you start out your highest dose of primobolan the first week or whatever this is, 2 weeks, when you said before that you want to start low?
Well, here's why, Nick. Well, let's assume Brandon's taken tren in the past. Tren is 5 times as weak as primo. So if Brandon is doing 500 milligrams of primo, that would be about equal to doing 100 milligrams of tren. Let's make up a number and say Brandon used 200 milligrams of tren for his previous cycle. He would need 1,000 milligrams of primo to build the same amount of muscle. You can't compare how strong and effective tren is to primo. Primo a lot safer, but a lot weaker. And so when Brandon says I'm starting at my highest dose of primo, doesn't mean it's his highest dose of everything combined. He could very well have been on 1,500 total milligrams a week for his last show. We don't know. But what we do know is this is what he's starting on this cycle for the first of his 5 months. Doesn't mean he's not going to up the doses. It means this is what he's doing for the first several weeks.
Primo can act as an anchor, which can basically decrease the probability of estrogen conversion, which...
It doesn't do shit, guys. It's not an anti-estrogen.
And Nick is right. Primo is not an anti-estrogen. It's not going to just cancel out the estrogen conversion from testosterone. But primo doesn't convert to estrogen. So you can do a lower dose of testosterone and do a higher dose of primo, exactly what Brandon's doing, and not have to take Arimidex, Nova, Aromasin Femra, and so on.
Long exposure to testosterone can result in someone's higher cholesterol.
What are you talking about starting at 200 milligrams of testosterone? What is that going to do for you? You cannot grow and make gains at 200 milligrams of testosterone.
That's why he's added 500 milligrams of primo. You really think that you need a massive dose of testosterone to build muscle if you're taking other things? Let's pretend he was on 100 milligrams of test. 100 milligrams of test, 500 tren, 500 EQ, 500 masterone, 500 deca. Do you think he wouldn't build muscle from the other things? Do you think you need high doses of test, or can you in fact build muscle from the other compounds? Nick, you must know this.
It's not going to work, okay? And you don't get cholesterol issues from 200 milligrams of testosterone.
Nick, you don't get cholesterol issues from 200 milligrams of testosterone. Are you kidding me? Is your channel called Bodybuilding and Bullshit because you're spewing out bullshit about bodybuilding? Seriously, Nick, you can't, as in you won't, as if it's not a big deal, 200 milligrams of test. Of course, you can wreck your cholesterol on 200 milligrams of test. Do you know how many people's blood work I've seen on doses even lower than that, and their cholesterol's out of whack? So anyone watching this, don't believe Nick. Don't think you can just go on 200 milligrams of test a week and you have no chance of doing anything harmful to your body. I almost guarantee if you take 200 milligrams of test, you get your cholesterol taken, and then take it after taking the 200 milligrams of test, you will see significantly worse cholesterol results. And that's actually one of the biggest concerns of mine when I'm on HRT. One of the main things I look for is, in fact, my cholesterol. Is my 140 milligrams causing me to have a screwed up cholesterol? And if you're adding to this Arimidex because you're having estrogenic side effects, that can screw up cholesterol even more. So you can't just think, oh, it's just HRT. I just take 200 milligrams, 250. No big deal, does nothing. Only the massive doses, 1,000 milligrams, that's when you can do harm. I'm sorry, Nick. Small doses, especially if you have poor genetics, it's going to lead to huge negative impacts on your health. Imagine if 200 milligrams of test a week had no negative side effects. Why wouldn't everyone just go on 200 milligrams of test? Imagine the muscle everyone would put on. Oh, 200 milligrams of test, no negative side effects. Let's all take it. Most people would put on 10 pounds of muscle or more if they're on 200 milligrams of test. Sorry, telling you the truth, not telling y'all to go out and get HRT, 200 milligrams. Frankly, that is too high for most people on HRT. But I am going to speak the truth and say most people would in fact gain 10 pounds of muscle or more on 200 milligrams.
100 micrograms of T4. We're going to basically run this until I get my blood results back again, and if my thyroid is performing fine.
If he's like really cooked up, which I don't think he is because he's not fat, okay? He's still very lean. So that's telling me right away that his thyroid production is not that bad.
And what about Brandon's underactive thyroid? He's taking T4. We all know he was in contest prep. He was in a brutal calorie deficit. I made a number of videos saying he's dieting too hard, gonna lose muscle. You've all seen it. Nick says probably has metabolic damage. But then he says he can't have that bad of a T4 production because he's looking at him physically and he's not fat. Just because Brandon is not fat does not mean he didn't ruin his thyroid. It doesn't mean that. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's calories in, calories out. You can have a horribly slow metabolism and still be lean if you don't eat a lot. If Brandon Harding at over 6'1", 250 pounds is eating 2,000 calories a day, he's not going to be fat. But on the other extent, if he's eating 7,000 calories a day, has a fast metabolism, he'll still be fat because he'll be in a calorie surplus.
The reason his thyroid is probably suppressed is because I don't know if you guys follow this guy's journey or not, but he was just in prep, a very, very, very brutal prep for a long time.
And I find it ironic that Nick Trigili says that if you followed Brandon's prep, you would know this. And it's like, Nick, if you followed Brandon's prep, you would know that he was probably taking Tren and other things and not just Test and Primo. How can you say if you followed Brandon Harding's prep if you clearly didn't follow it yourself?
Through the use of T4 and T3, you can kill off your thyroid.
Suppress, not kill off. And like I said, he's not fat.
You don't get fat, it just gets harder to be lean. Doesn't mean you get fat, means it's easier to get fat. But you still have to put that fork in your mouth and you still have to overconsume calories. Stop making excuses.
It seems like he says he struggles with estrogen conversion, which there's nothing wrong, guys, with taking a little Arimidex or Novadex when necessary. You don't need to take Primobolan to counteract that. That is not true.
Yes and no. If you lower your testosterone dose and replace that testosterone with Primo, you don't need the aromatase inhibitor or the SERM. So there is no one quick solution or answer. There's multiple solutions to the problem. If your body converts too much testosterone to estrogen, you're worried about gyno and puffiness and all of this, you can in fact lower your dose of test and replace it with something that doesn't convert to estrogen. Primo or Masterone. Not telling you to take it, but it is a viable solution. You don't have to take a SERM or an aromatase inhibitor. You can replace the testosterone with Primo or Masterone and still build muscle.
Because you're just not going to put on tissue that way. Using 200 milligrams of test and a couple hundred milligrams of Primobolan, this is essentially what women use.
Trust me, if a woman's taken 250 milligrams of test and 500 milligrams of Primo, she will not look like a woman for too long. Sorry, telling you the truth, telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. A woman taking those kind of doses is going to slowly convert into being a male. Consider that if you are in fact a woman transitioning to male, that is more testosterone without even the primo that they would give you.
If you really want to put on tissue, guys, it's going to take a hell of a lot more drugs than that. Just trust me when I say this. I've been there. I've done it.
He's wrong. There are people with amazing genetics, and if they went on 250 milligrams of test and 500 primo, they could quite literally win the Olympia. I personally believe that Chris Bumstead could follow this exact cycle and win the Olympia next year. The freaking Olympia in the IPE Pro ranks. This exact cycle. Maybe he wouldn't, I don't know, but I do personally believe that he could. But hey, he has amazing genetics. But you can't just say you can't build that kind of muscle with that cycle. How would he know this?
To reflect on his blood work, I don't think he could have this damage by the age of 24 by only using 200 milligrams of test and 500 milligrams of primobolan.
It could be even worse. Some people would do more damage than this. However, Brandon never said that's the only amount I've ever done in my life. Brandon has quite literally laid out many of his cycles. The first video I ever did on Brandon was, in fact, talking about his cycle, how stupid and moronic it was. Way back when I had 20, 30,000 subs. Remember that video? Brandon was on a bunch of orals. It made no sense. Coach was not knowledgeable. And so I don't think that Brandon is, in fact, lying. And I do think that Nick has not done enough research to do an accurate and honest assessment of Brandon's cycle. Ending it here. GregDoucette.com for coaching. Greg Doucette, IB Pro. Please watch the Bloops Harder Than Last Time supplements, including the natural muscle builder, Turkesterone. Maybe you could develop an Olympia physique with Turkesterone. Probably not. Maybe Chris could, though. Also, cookbooks, training books, coaching plans by me and my team. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment for the algorithm, and until next time, I am out.